stuff would get put into thrift shops, or there was a very good record store, Footlight Records. It was on East 12th Street, and that actually was the only store I ever saw that had a bin with a little section in it called industrial, because there were enough people in New York City cleaning out their records that that's where I found Diesel Dazzle and several other ones. And then after a while, I knew I was onto something when I would go to that store and rush right to that bin and what is going on with me? Why do I care about this? I don't know, but I do, and I keep wanting to find more and more.
What I really enjoyed was the fact that you think that, for some of these people, it was a job, as you mentioned, they mentioned it was a job to pay the rent. But I really enjoyed your talk with Hank Beebe because he was like really into, getting his job and just getting to motivate people and just being very careful and being very meticulous about all the subjects and points he had to make. Was he an exception to that, or did other people, say as dedicated as he was?
I think of all the people I've met over the years, and there are a lot, and many wonderful people who are not in the movie also, but I think Hank is the most thoughtful and articulate on a lot of these topics, and he has taught me so much about just how to think about creative work and how to live your life and integrate your work with what you think your life should be about. He told me wonderful things. One very early on when I first met him, and he dug stuff out of his basement and listened to some of these records again for the first time in decades, and he'd say, wow, that actually was really good, wasn't it? But he would say, we did our best on all these shows every time, not just because the money was good, but because we could not bear to do, and we could not do anything less than our very best work every time we went out. And I've thought that is an inspiring thing to hear for anybody who tries to do anything creative. You may never know if your audience will fully understand or appreciate it, but you're doing it because you got into it, you wanted to do it, so I remember that. He also told me when he came to New York in the early 50s, and he was pounding the pavement trying to get going in the songwriting business, and going anywhere he could, playing at clubs or whatever, he was selling himself and selling his music, and he found it very difficult, and that's why when he started doing industrials, he looked out in the audiences of these salesmen, usually men, later years more women, but usually men at that time, and he felt empathy for them because he said, I know how hard it is to sell things, and if I can help you feel a tailwind to motivate you and get you excited to do that, and get you to do your best, then I really will have done something good. So a remarkable man. He has written enormous volumes of other kinds of work that don't get mentioned in here, musicals of all sorts, not about companies, a vast library of sacred music, choral groups and hymns and masses for churches. Anybody who sings sacred music in the United States probably, and I've had people say this to me at Q&As, is this the same Hank Beebe who wrote the music that my church sings? And I said, yes it is, how about that?
You find that a little strange?
I asked him about that. Do you feel weird that these two different parts of your musical life that don't reconcile somehow? And he said no. He's thoughtful about this, and he's able to say, you have a message that you want to get across, and you use music and words and artistry and your craft to get that message across, whether it's something about the greatest themes of life in a theological sense, or if it's about the marketing plans for the new RCA color televisions. There's some overlap for him in his mind about this is the message, how can I get the message out there the best way?
Okay, there might be a question or two. Yes?
It's not really a question, it's an observation for what it's worth. It seems to me that a lot of people would buy records in order to chat up actresses. But you do it the other way around, you chat up the actress so that you can buy the obscure record.
Yes, but then it sort of turned. Somebody who had seen the movie at one of them, I think it was a film festival in Traverse City, Michigan, wrote me a letter after seeing the movie and said it quite beautifully, and I'll paraphrase it, but it was basically, you thought you were looking for people so you could find records, but it turned out you were looking for records so you could find people. And I had no idea that that was going to be the story arc of this, and I want to talk about it as a film also, what you've just seen was made by filmmakers, and I am not a filmmaker. I want that to be very clear. I'm the guy in the movie, but I did not sweat in an edit room for 2 years to figure this thing out. And David Letterman and Ozzy Inguanzo, her co-writer, co-producer, that is an art that I can only now dimly appreciate, how to take a pile of real stuff and make a story and hold back some information and put out some information in careful order. You see me go from being the cynical comedy writer who was sneering at this stuff to the dawning realization that there might be something valuable here, to loving and caring about people. And then we'll talk more about the ending sequence also, but as a film, I am astonished and humbled and thrilled to be involved with it, because it's better and deeper and wilder and richer than I could have ever imagined any of this could be.
Yes.
Oh,
What are you going to do with your collection?
you want it?
Well, I'm a cultural ethnographer, and I know people at the Library of Congress who would probably love to have your collection.
Yes, those questions do come up, and I do hope that I have a couple more decades at least to play with it in my own sandbox. But two things: yes, time will pass, and I'll have to think about that. And also, with each passing month and meeting more people, more stuff comes to me, and at some point, I know a great and terrible day is going to happen. The truck is going to pull up in front of my apartment building with 75 cubic yards of stuff that Hank or Sid's family or somebody wants me to have, and I don't know what I'll be able to do with it. So yes, that is a relevant question, whether it's the Library of Congress or some performing arts library. Of course, I dream of the mall in Washington having a beautiful marble museum on it, a museum of the American Industrial Show. And you go in, and there's all the films playing, and then all the gift shop stuff with all the aloes you can buy, and probably a wax figure of me going like this. I don't know. But I would love to have this out. I mean, I feel like between the book and this documentary, the story is told and it is secure. But what to do with all that stuff, I agree. Maybe I'll give you my card later. We'll talk about what to do before I have to decide.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say I love the finale of the film, and I love the last two songs. And it's like the beginning of an encore career. You know, that was your second act. I just loved it.
Oh, thank you. I have become rather fond of songwriting. I learned to play some guitar, and then I nervously started combining words with the music and thought, do I really want to put my day job, which is words, in with my hobby, which is guitar? And then I've gotten more comfortable with that. So thank you. But I do want to tell you a bit about the finale, and I don't know, you've probably heard some about this. The closing number was shot on the Warner Brothers backlot in Los Angeles in one day. Dava and Ozzy especially, and a few of the other producers, spent months planning every detail of this so it could be done in one day, and there was no ambiguity from one moment to the next about what had to happen. I am thrilled that I did write that song with Hank B. You may have seen him go by in the credits. It really is thrilling, and Hank's a great guy who emails me, Steve, what happened in Traverse City? Steve, what happened in Birmingham? Call me. Tell me what happened at film festivals. He is deeply invested in all this. But he and I wrote that song, a lot of false starts, but we finally got something that we liked. And it was movie magic. Dava and Ozzy planned this out. They wanted to do a thing at the end of the movie that was 180 degrees away from my beginning as the sort of cynical, hardened comedy writer who didn't like musicals or understand them or care about them. And now at the end of the movie, I'm marching down the streets in glittery jacket going, that is an exclamation point on the end of an emotional and narrative arc, for sure.
Well, do you know at what point during the production, or was it before the film, where they had this idea to do this number?
No, it was only last winter we started trying to figure out, all right, if we were going to do some sort of musical or production number at the end, what would it be? And I think it was January I started writing drafts of songs and scenes, and it was a hard thing to figure out, what do we want to say? What is the point of this whole movie in a song? And there were a lot of blind alleys, and there were thoughts about, oh, should we shoot it in a theater? And Ozzy just kept saying, we have to go for the whole brass ring on this. We have to go overreach and make it work and get the full thing out on the street with cars. We were gonna put ordinary modern cars on the street, and then a friend said, oh, I know the people who have all the cool old movie cars. I'm gonna make some calls, and they heard about it. This sounds wonderful. Suddenly 14 Mustangs and 55 Chevys show up and fill the streets, and so many people, it is so thrilling how many people heard about this, got wind of it, and said, I want to be part of this. What can I do to help? It really was the best of show business and the best of what creative people can do. What a task it was. I'll tell you, we were in a recording studio, I think the day before the shoot on the street, because we had to lay down all our vocals. I have never seen human beings as starstruck as those two punk rock guys, Don Bowles and Jello Biafra, were to meet The Bathrooms Are Coming to You. They knew these songs backward and forward, and when Pat and Sandy showed up, their eyes widened, and oh my God, can we take pictures with you? Will you sing to us? Oh my God, it was just adorable.
And Jello Biafra, this is a guy who fronted a band called the Dead Kennedys.
That's right, and now he's marching down the street in a musical number, so life is strange, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Anything, like investment houses, like Citibank or any like Wall Street firms, any musical, did they ever do any of this kind of stuff?
I have some material from some big insurance companies. I don't know about like Goldman Sachs or any of that. It's very possible. I know that these places often did sort of in-house variety shows that I think tapped their own in-house talent to get up and sing, and that's another form of this. I seem to gravitate towards especially the ones where they brought in hired gun Broadway type people to do things.
What about the public sector? Public libraries, the unions,
There-
campaign commercials?
Yeah, there are a lot of related fields, like World's Fairs often had the pavilions that corporations would sponsor. Michael Brown actually wrote the DuPont show for the 64-65 World's Fair, which feels very much like an industrial musical. Unions actually were kind of ahead of the curve on this stuff. By the late 30s, they were starting to put together pro-union musicals. And I've seen some record albums from the International Ladies Garment Workers Association, things like that. But it was really after World War II that everything came together with mass popular acceptance of Broadway shows as mainstream entertainment, and then you had post-World War II psychological thinking about how do we get people motivated, how do we get teams to bond and go together on a common mission into the future, and that's what they wanted for this. And now you had LP records, you could put a whole musical's worth of original soundtrack material on one disc.
Yeah, in the very back.
Two questions. One was how long the film was in the making in terms of when you came to the conclusion, hey, this could be a movie. And the second thing was there any crossover between this work and any of the commercial TV or radio jingles that you all grew up with?
Yes, I can tell you some about that. The movie was just about 4 years from the first shot to the finished edit, which was last March. And 4 years is not pushing the envelope at all on independent documentaries. I'll tell you, I've heard of ones that take 10 years. At least once somebody said, oh, I know somebody who's working on something and they're in year 20 trying to get it done. So 4 years felt like a long time to me. And then we premiered last April at Tribeca, so it's now been 6 months out on the road showing it to people, which I love. And as a footnote to that, we are apparently about to have a distribution deal finalized. And it will be a limited theatrical run apparently before the end of this year in selected cities, and then streaming somewhere. I don't know where yet, but we will be looking for friends and allies like you people. If you like the movie, tell your friends, go on social media and say, I just saw something amazing, you gotta see it when it comes to your town or whatever. And it's bathtubsoverbroadway.com, it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that. Also, if you're curious, industrialmusicals.com is what I set up, and you can find where to get the book on Amazon, but also I have collections of the music that you can get to. And the second question of this, which I've wandered away from, what was the second half of the question?
cross over to,
Oh yeah, jingles and commercials, yeah. Many of these composers had a foot in that world as well. Sid Siegel did a lot of jingles and commercials. I know Hank Beebe and Bill Heyer did some of that as well. But they also, all these people did a lot of things. Film scores, most of them did that one time or another. Writing off-Broadway productions, hoping that it would get them to Broadway. And obviously some people made it and some people didn't. Although Sheldon Harnick told me when he started to get his real Broadway success, he was regretful. He said, "Oh, I hope I don't have to stop doing industrials," which seems bizarre, but he loved them as an intellectual challenge and a puzzle and a way to take the least likely material and make something great out of it. He loved the craftsmanship involved in that.
Yes, so you are such a cultural aficionado of what these things meant, and I'm curious because you see, especially at the beginning, 99.9% white men was the audience that they were writing for, and I'm curious about the effect of that, how they wrote for that audience, and whether it did change, as you said, over time by the 80s.
Yeah, you can see a lot of sociological trends through American history in the 20th century through the lens of this stuff. Gender is a huge one. For a long time, yes, the audiences are almost all men. Sometimes wives were brought to the car show or the appliance show or whatever. The dealer or salesman's wives could come. And there are songs on some of these albums. Oh, the Exxon dealer's wife has her own song in this one. Or the Clark Equipment, the forklift dealer's wife has her own lament about her overworked husband. That's a subgenre of this. But you do see it change, and by the 70s, women in the shows are not necessarily housewives or dancers in skimpy costumes. You're starting to see women executives and salespeople. You're starting to see people of color coming in. The very interesting way that I started seeing that, like there's an American Motors show that Hank Beebe and Bill Heyer worked on. And this was the first time, it was the mid-60s, and I saw some African-American cast members, and I said, that's the first time I've seen that, what was going on there? And he said the company was starting to hire African-American salespeople in their organization, and they wanted this reflected in the show. So you can't really claim that many of these companies were ahead of the curve on a lot of these issues, but at least they all were dragged along, generally following the curve. And by the 80s, you have a much more diverse looking cast and much more diverse group of people in the audience.
Any other? Yes.
Why do you think that it was so secretive, in other words, so unknown, because it was so prevalent?
It's very interesting to me. Like I would tell Hank Beebe a few years ago, Hank, I'm going to work on a book about this stuff, and he said, I don't see how that could possibly be a good idea. He and all the other people doing this, they only saw their own 1% of what was happening, and they had no idea that it was this vast landscape until I was telling them there are all these people like you in other cities across the country who were doing this without knowing what anyone else was doing. If you were a Coca-Cola bottler and you went to the Coca-Cola show, you might have gone, oh my God, what a crazy show, but you had no idea that 100 other companies were doing them around the country the same year for Westinghouse and Pepsi and American Standard. Nobody until the later years now, this book especially now, the movie, nobody really had ever seen the scope of what this all was together. Everyone saw their own tiny chip of it and could not really see the big landscape until recently.
Yeah.
From that passion. But now that you've done that, where do you go from here? Is it songwriting, or do you have other things in mind?
Well, I would love to keep up with songwriting. I think I'll probably keep doing TV writing in some form. I've written a couple of scripts this year that are out being looked at allegedly by people who buy such things. I don't know. I love going around the country to film festivals. I don't see that as a great income stream, quite frankly. I mean, you get some hors d'oeuvres or free drinks occasionally, but I would love to have go out and do speaking and presentations on this topic. You saw in the movie a little bit that I had started doing that, especially after the Letterman show ended, and I did tours through different parts of the country, showing a 90-minute show of film clips, the vintage films. I showed the whole Silicones movie, the whole Purina Dog Chow movie, the whole Bathrooms Are Coming movie, and a whole slew of other ones which I comment on and make lovingly snarky comments on during the film. And it can be an uproarious, fun night, but then with a touch of the seriousness that you see in the movie also, as we talk about these people and what this work meant to them and how to figure out what your life's work has meant to you and how to judge the value of what you've done with your career, all these things. It's all hilarious, and then there's all these other layers underneath it that coexist, and I love trying to bring all those layers to people.
We have time for one more?
Yes.
Not so much a question as a statement. For 37 years, I owned an entertainment and production company and produced hundreds of industrials.
Really?
Just to be clear, by industrials, you mean films, videos?
No, live industrials.
Live stuff, oh, the primo stuff, good, thank you.
But I just wanted to follow on a question that was asked, why was it so maybe secretive or unknown? And there was a comment in the film with regards to the budget. There was a comment about a $3 million budget. And the answer to the question is that shareholders would be appalled if you knew how much actually was being spent. And if you think back to the 2002, 2003 recession, the Enron scandal and Strong Financial and all of those, they were all clients of ours, but there were all of these exposés on these multi-million-dollar boondoggles that were taking place all over the world, and there was outrage. People's stock portfolios were in peril and up in flames, and these large events and parties and galas and industrials were going on. So it was really kind of the thing that if you worked in the industry, as has been suggested, you knew about it, but outside that world, if you didn't happen to be an employee or a distributor or someone who was invited, it was really a private world.
Yes, that's an excellent point, the lavishness. I think they didn't want it broadcast too much, although there was sort of an arms race element to it, I think, for a long time. If Plymouth had 30 dancers, Ford better have 40 next year, and then Chevy's going to have 50, and you have to prove that you are a major player in your industry by having the biggest blowout show anyone's ever seen. But secret at the same time, because these things, the songs, they may have been peppy tunes, but they were often full of highly privileged insider information that they didn't want their competitors across town to know exactly how many horsepower the new tractor engine was going to have, or exactly what the new wash cycle feature of the dishwasher was going to be. They were very protective of that material, and so...
And digs at their competitors.
Yes, and you hear things in these shows that they would never have said in public, just like Ford saying, "Beat the hell out of Chevrolet." I mean, they're less circumspect when behind closed doors. There's a Coca-Cola show where they said in the Coca-Cola bottler plant up in the sky where they're in heaven, and they send the guys from OSHA straight to hell. I don't think you want that out. But I heard one composer tell me they had done a show, it might have been an Oldsmobile show in Las Vegas. Oldsmobile loved this stuff for decades. Top of the line Broadway people up and down. And the writers of this show knew it was terrific, and they said to the Oldsmobile brass, "Can we just open the doors tonight after the show's over, and the cast loves it, can we just do it again? Let the public come in, charge them $1. But this is a great show and people would love it, and we could just keep doing it for another day or two." And the Oldsmobile people said, "Absolutely not, absolutely not. Nobody outside the organization gets to see this."
Well, Steve, thank you very, very much for your session.